My name is Mike Roberts. I am a content and social media producer, and I've gotten experience on both the client and agency side, and social media is one of my specialties. So I'll be presenting 7 small business social media trends for 2013, and these trends apply to large organizations as well, and this is just slightly catered to small businesses. This is a recap presentation of what I presented to SEM San Diego on November 26th, just to jot down a digital copy of what I presented there. So let's go ahead and jump in. First trend for 2013 that I see is going to be big is branded entertainment overtakes traditional disruptive advertising. So if we look at historically where we've been coming from, we see that we've had a few brands that have communicated over a few channels, and the consumers were able to receive those messages pretty easily because you could put an advertisement on TV, for example, and hit a huge population of consumers, and it was a pretty nice environment. Today, things have changed quite a bit, obviously. Lots of channels, lots of brands, and every channel, even though there are more of them, has become really cluttered. This is a pretty obvious point these days, I think. So we have to fight for consumers' attention, and even more than attention, we want it to be good attention, right? We don't want to be on the front page of the New York Times with some, oil spill or catastrophe. We want to actually earn their trust. So we have to fight for their trust, and that's an even more of a scarce commodity than attention is. So we don't want to be the kid in class who is screaming where everyone knows that we're there. We have their attention, but no one wants to be our friend. So one of the best ways to do this in a cluttered environment is to entertain our customers rather than to disrupt them. So historically, back in that TV example, consumers would want to watch their TV show, and we would show an advertisement that would disrupt or get in the way of what they wanted to watch. So embedding what our message is into what they want to watch is a much better system. So product placement is just one example that people understand, and that's a much better approach in today's environment. Today's cluttered environment. So you can see in the examples, like with Dos Equis, they have the most interesting man in the world campaign that they've been running for a while now, where it's so entertaining that consumers actually seek out the advertisement on YouTube and go and watch them again and try to find other ones within the campaign that they haven't seen before. And this isn't talking about any of the attributes of the beer. It's building a brand, basically. And so the brand entertainment is especially good for building brands, not so much for typical advertising where you have the features on an advertisement. And if you aren't familiar with this campaign, he basically says some really hilarious line, and has nothing to do with beer, but it's really entertaining. Just an example is running in place is not nearly as effective as running from a lion. And the way he delivers it is just really, really funny. So to give another example, to keep moving through, we have Old Spice, which their YouTube videos have become pretty infamous nowadays, where they're able to entertain people by creative advertising, basically, by having these kind of bathroom scenes where he says funny things, and he interacts in this case like the Ellen Show and other popular shows and celebrity icons, and it's really they're pretty funny and engaging, and it doesn't have anything to do with promoting the specifics of or advertising in a traditional sense their body wash. Another good example is BMW, where they actually hired a movie director to film James Bond-like chase scenes, to go around through San Francisco or whatever, where they have basic plots, and where the guy is trying to save the girl before the bad guy hurts her or something, and they have these epic chase scenes that have nothing to do with how fast the car accelerates or what the miles per gallon is, but it is building a brand that BMW is really good handling, and that it's the car that can take the good guy through all of these really tight turns and whatnot. And it's pure entertainment. They're 8 to 15 minutes long, and this has a much different kind of disruption where consumers are seeking these out on YouTube and loving watching them again and again and showing them to their friends. And as opposed to holding consumers' attention for maybe 30 seconds, in an advertising commercial, this is holding their attention for 8 to 15 minutes or more even. And so it's a much more effective approach. We see examples of kind of partnerships with Banana Republic and Mad Men, where Banana Republic knows fashion and Mad Men knows storytelling, and this is a shot of a Banana Republic store window that is promoting Mad Men, and they kind of cross promote each other. And Don Draper is the best salesman that Banana Republic could ask for, as he kind of walks around in his Manhattan suave lifestyle wearing their latest line of clothing. And Red Bull, this is a shot of the highest recorded jump ever, and it's sponsored by an energy drink company. Why? Because it's creating really interesting, entertaining content that the consumers that they have, their customers, energy drink, sports type people, love this stuff. And this is what breaks through the clutter. This is what captures people's attention for an engaged period of time. And this is what earns trust as well. So we've seen examples today of the more cutting edge examples of platforms like Brightcove, which is a pay service that allows you to monetize videos and things. They can place targeted ads around the video, as you can see here, like below it or even within it, on the sides of it, and kind of target it to the users that you're trying to reach, and allows you to monetize it. That's what's available today. Also, what's available today is green screen product placement, and this gives more relevance. And basically what it is everyone knows what a green screen is, where you can have someone talking in front of the camera and you have a green screen behind them, and you can kind of place them wherever you want. You can place whatever background behind them that you want, as long as you have that green screen. Well, if movie directors know this ahead of time and they film movies with green screens in certain strategic places, they can change out what kind of beer's in the fridge. So just an example, if you watch a movie in the United States and a character or a movie actor opens the fridge, you see an American beer in the fridge. But if you watch that same movie in Germany, you would maybe see a German beer instead. And if they plan ahead of time, they can have that kind of customization, and that adds extra relevance and it adds extra revenue, because you're able to tailor the product to the customer. And so we also see examples today of Amazon's advanced behavioral targeting technology, where they're able to target consumers based on analytics and numbers and statistics and viewer behaviors. So they can basically see what consumers are looking at and then target related products towards those consumers, because they know what they're in the market for, know what they're shopping for, know what they're interested in. They can figure out that this guy is 50 years old, lives in New York, and likes to fish. Well, the next step that we haven't quite seen yet is where you can start taking that kind of analysis and behavioral targeting and put it into these green screen environments, where you can have a much more catered viewing audience or program, so that the actual movie or TV show, whatever it might be, or maybe YouTube video eventually, will begin to change depending on who's watching it. And all of this costs a lot of money, but the cost is not going to be as nearly as much as the return, because this added relevance is going to be able to offer a lot more value to advertisers, and it's going to be a lot more, as I said, entertaining and interesting for consumers, because you're being advertised with what they want to see, what they're in the market to buy. And Terminator 2 is an excellent example of that cost and return scenario, where after Terminator 2, Harley-Davidson's sales skyrocketed. Now, they didn't have a partnership, but the point is the same, where it became an American icon, where it got embedded into culture, and once the movie came out, it became extremely popular. But it was also, people rented that movie for years on DVDs, and then they watched it again as reruns on TV. So it had a 10-year lifespan, and you see YouTube videos that have become a part of popular culture, and it's just because some YouTube producers have actually gotten more audience views than primetime television shows. And so this is a really interesting way to become a part of branded entertainment. It allows new revenue streams to be created. You can sell the actual content, so you can actually maybe incorporate down the line into a Netflix model, like a subscriber model, where you can actually sell the content you're producing. So when BMW creates their 15-minute thing, if they're able to monetize and actually sell that as valuable content that people want to watch, the way they would watch 007 maybe. On a small scale, we can see people being able to do that on Vimeo already, and there's other new kind of crowdfunding models that are developing. The point is that the content becomes something that people actually might pay for. So those new revenue streams can help pay for the extra costs as well. On a small scale, small business guys can start on YouTube. The following production costs and then the free distribution that YouTube provides really enables the small guy, anyone, to really participate in this. Just finding something that isn't necessarily, doesn't have to be a movie studio quality, but as long as it's resonating with the audience, this concept will work out well. And costs are very minimal for cameras and things these days. And another way to kind of get into branded entertainment is to reduce the risk through strategic partnerships. Like I mentioned with Banana Republic and Mad Men, Banana Republic knows fashion. They may not know storytelling all that well, but Mad Men, the creators, producers of it, really know storytelling well. It's a hit TV show. And they kind of combine their core competencies to reduce the risk of it working out. Or of it not working out, rather. So that's the first trend. Second trend is social commerce. Here we see the total U.S. e-commerce spending reached $256 billion in 2011, and that's up 12% from 2010. So there's a lot of growth in this area. And we see this area is very different. It's rapidly changing. So we see mobile. We see people are shopping on their phones. They're shopping with multiple devices, and the distribution model is changing quite a bit. So you don't need to go through Best Buy to have national distribution or international distribution to sell your product. You can scale in a much more efficient and a much more relevant way through social sharing. So all of these changes are coming together, and it's really causing us to have to recreate and really rethink from the ground up the new shopping environment and the shopping experience for social commerce. So this is another reinforcement that mobile commerce is the second fastest audience growth category for mobile. So it's the second fastest growing activity that people do on smartphones. And there's been an 87% increase from 2010 to 2011. This is a ComScore statistic. And the Altimeter Group is similar to ComScore. They do a lot of research, and they came up with a definition for social commerce. And they say the use of social strategies to anticipate, personalize, and energize the shopping experience is the definition for social commerce. So here we see a traditional e-commerce purchase path, where you see in the far left, the home page of the website. This is for North Face. It's an outdoor clothing company. And then if you click through from the home page, you see this next page, which has a lot of pretty pictures on it still. So we see a lot of time and effort put into these first two pages. They have high quality photos. They have they've gone out and they've taken photo shoots with characters out on mountains, and they've put a lot of time into there. And then usually this is to inspire and then to help refine what people are looking for. And then once we drill a step deeper to the third photo, we see that there aren't any actors in it. There aren't any inspirational photos. This is more actual refinement and figuring out what you want to buy, and it's more production. So they need to turn these photos out quite a bit and change them out. And then the final photo is where you actually are buying. This is where you make the purchase. And this is the page that gets neglected the most, but this is the page that also gets socially shared. So all of the social buttons, whether you like it or plus one it or pin it or whatever, are on this page. And if you think about, if someone does tweet this page out, anyone that clicks on that link are not going to go through the home page and the second page of pretty pictures. They get down to it to get re-inspired and to make this purchase. They're going to go straight to this boring page, the page without a character, without a mountain photo, and without any of that stuff. And it's missing an opportunity to really capitalize on that social sharing, which is the new distribution model of the future and of actually the present. It's been this way for a while now. And so I think we really need to polish these final pages, and that does require more production time, more production work, but doing it in an efficient way is going to be important to be able to capitalize on that social sharing. Another kind of pairing onto that is to make product names more enticing to capitalize on when they're shared. So this is an example. If you clicked on to tweet this jacket, this is what it says: Men's Summit Jacket with a link. And why not say something like, I'm ready to scale Mount Everest with this new North Face gear, or something that's going to be actually enticing to click on, from a user's perspective. Another thing that we can really, I think we're missing an opportunity on, is to shift from a static product page to a social dynamic one, showing the product uses, customer reviews, what else it can be used with, and re-inspiring the consumer. So, this is a GoPro camera. It's used for a lot of extreme sports, jumping out of planes and surfing and scuba diving and all that. And it's a waterproof, pretty indestructible camera. So to the left is a photo. You can use it on a snowboard helmet. Or what if you are a surfer and you can join a group of people that also have these cameras and all together go on a surfing trip, or connect with the community to be able to share your photos and explain how you got that photo, or where you took it. Were you in the Bahamas, or were you over in Costa Rica on a surf trip or something, or and then to share those photos and to re-inspire what other users are using their product for, how they're using it, how they got their shots. And then to really mine your users or your customers for new ideas, new product ideas. What else can you do with it? Or what else do you want to see in terms of add-ons or features or new developments or whatever it might be. So this is what I think that the future of a shopping cart, that final page, can look like. That boring jacket turns into something that is tying back into an ongoing relationship with the company, and it's providing a much better overall experience for the customer. So there are 4 categories of social commerce that I'll point out, and this comes from research from the Altimeter group. They've kind of broken these categories out and shown that this is what companies at large are doing. So the first is Let's Be Social. This is a pretty basic brand advocacy. You have like buttons and social sharing things on your site and on your page. There's basic features, but it's pretty step one. A lot of people just stop there. So enlightened engagement goes quite a bit deeper, and this actually measures sentiment analysis. So say you can measure that someone tweeted that page out, but maybe it wasn't a good thing. Maybe they thought, oh, the colors are ugly, or I can't believe someone would actually buy this, or whatever it might be. You can measure the sentiment to see whether people are saying positive or negative things, for example. Sharing expert insight. So say someone, there's an expert that is writing about your product, or there's people that are reviewing your product, or things like that. This actually amplifies their voice. So you're finding these people, you have a relationship with them, that's part of step one, and you're aware of them, and this actually uses your brand's clout and voice to draw attention to what these experts and other people are saying positively about your brand. Next step is store of the community, stage 3, and this is kind of a maturity path, if you will. This is actually where community starts driving the assortments. They start to determine what you're carrying to some degree, and the shelf personalizes based on who is viewing it. So you can show different products to different people. You can stock one type of thing more than others, or you can hear your community requesting for certain things to be offered that aren't currently offered, things like that. That's the store of the community. Frictionless commerce really capitalizes on that multi-device environment. So you have a frictionless shopping experience when you move from PC to tablet to mobile, and it keeps track of gaming loyalty programs. You're able to connect with other like-minded shoppers. That's that piece with GoPro where you're able to connect with the community, maybe even go on a trip and have a real-life experience with these people. The frictionless commerce environment automates mobile checkouts. It has geolocation within the store to improve relevancy. You can integrate social into the physical store. So if you walk into a physical store, you can actually connect that experience with your social presence. And then having corporate responsibility at the shelf, ensuring that there's a lot of relevancy with the corporate responsibility that your company has. Okay, so trend 3, social search and a shift back to user-paid content. Giving away content that isn't worth consuming doesn't offer value just because it's free. That's a tweetable quote. If you want to tweet that out, feel free. I think that has a lot of relevancy to 2013 as we see Google commoditizing content and giving away content for free. And you see people that have been put out of business, for producing. They used to produce content professionally, and they aren't able to do so because of Google, basically. So you think like Napster versus iTunes model, where Napster is giving stuff away for free, and artists can't make money doing it anymore. And you see iTunes actually having copyrighted, protected content that charges money. I'll get into more of that in a second. But that's basically what this is saying. Like, people think that if I give it away for free, it offers value. But if the content's not any good, it doesn't. It's not worth someone reading. It's not worth spending your time looking at the content. So you have to really rethink value. In social search, technology is being integrated into results from Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and this is going to improve relevance. And this point is just basically that social is going to be a bigger player even within search, which is a kind of it's related, but it's a separate category. So social is becoming more important, as to be expected. People generally care more about what their friends think than what Google shows them. So if their friend recommends something, that's going to be more important. So as a brand, thinking about how do you tap into getting your customers to recommend things to their friends is a key opportunity. And then the other trend is that people are starting on social platforms now. So they used to start a lot more on Google, and now they're starting to move away from that and start on Facebook, for example. So that means that you have to, again, have a social presence. And then not only just have one, but to have a mature one. So digital content subscriptions is the fastest growing retail e-commerce category in 2011 with a 26% growth rate. A lot of people say that they can't sell their content because people aren't paying for it. They won't pay for it. And I think that you can charge for your content if you offer value. If you really truly offer value, you won't have any trouble convincing people to pay for it. So, this whole trend is propelled by tablets and e-readers, and it's mostly made up through downloaded subscriptions. That includes stuff like The Economist or New York Times and things like that. It also includes music, movies, TV shows, and ebooks and things. And this category growth will accelerate even more as these tablets and e-readers kind of break into the mainstream. We see Amazon really cutting the cost on some of these devices and cutting the price point down. So that's going to really offer a lot of market penetration and kind of get this trend even growing faster in the near future. So the point is that this people do pay for content if you offer value. That's the point. And this statistic comes from ComScore. And here we see this kind of two categories of companies: publishers versus product companies. Publishers make money by selling their content. Product companies make money by selling products. That's pretty obvious, but publishers can't take advantage of inbound marketing because that's basically giving content away for free. You can't make money giving content away for free. The way that product companies can capitalize on inbound marketing, and basically inbound marketing is, say you post a blog and people searching for content related to what you offer find your blog article through Google, for example, and then they find out what you do and your product, and then they buy your product. That's basically inbound marketing. Product companies can do that because they have a product to sell that's separate than their content. Paid content, publishers need to switch towards charging for their content and back to a paid model. So we went through this period of give everything away for free because there's this expectation that content should be free. publishers are starting to swing back, and I expect we'll see a swing back towards people paying for content again. They'll start, publishers will start charging again for content. And again, it's that Napster versus iTunes model. And the reason why they can charge for it is because the quality is so much better. So you have to offer a lot more quality. If you think about a blog article that was free, and a small business owner may spend 2 or 3 hours on a blog article and give it away for free, but if you're able to spend 10 or 15 hours on that blog article because you're able to charge for it, then you'll be able to offer a lot more value and relevance to your niche. And you have this example with free blogs versus like a paid app, for example, also, where like I went to New York this last year and I bought an app that kind of showed the sights to see and where everything was and gave descriptions and tours and all that. And I could have found out all that information probably online somewhere if I would have spent the time to search for it. But the stuff that was free online isn't going to be updated as well. It's not going to show the content as easily. The user experience is not going to be as good. So there's a lot of value and relevance to spend a few dollars or $4 or $5 for a paid app because it offers so much value, and people are willing to pay for that if you offer value. Newspapers were forced to sell to everyone, so they had a distribution model that was very expensive, and so they couldn't focus on a very small niche because they had to expand to everybody because the cost was so big. And today it's just the opposite, where the distribution is extremely cheap. You can post a blog. You think about WordPress versus the New York Times as distribution. New York Times has tons of infrastructure to be able to distribute their physical paper. But a blogger just needs a WordPress account, and you can have international distribution immediately. And so this niche, by focusing on a niche, increases the relevance and the value that you can offer to that niche, and people will pay for that value. So this is kind of a historical, walking through what happened. Print went wide instead of deep due to distribution costs. Then we see Google systematically give away content. And then we see the publishers realize they couldn't make money anymore because no one was paying for the content because they expected it to be free. And then the quality drops a lot of times. Some inbound marketing takes off for product companies, not for publishers. And Apple's model takes off, which is quite different, where they offer copyrighted, professionally produced, paid content. And then we see Apple sells 100 million internet-connected devices, and so you see, this kind of wild success with inbound marketing and with publishing, but publishers can't give away their content for free through inbound marketing. So there's really different models, and we see this shift from Google to everyone used to use Google as a source to find new stuff and to find content they're looking for, and 90% of the devices accessed the internet through the traditional PC platform 3 or 4 years ago, and that's really transitioned to where 50% of devices that have access to the internet are now mobile, and only 1 to 5% of Google searches are done on a mobile device. So we see this very big shift that is going to speed up, I think, where people are going to, they found other ways to find the content they're looking for on mobile devices. So here's a breakdown of ways that we found our content without using Google. So if you're looking to redo your backyard, or on a travel, you want to schedule a trip around the world, you're going to look at Pinterest for destination sites, or maybe TripAdvisor for places to go. Or if you're looking for, LinkedIn or Yelp, if you're looking for a restaurant, you're going to go to Yelp, you're not going to go to Google. And so these types of sites have really catered to a niche, and they've become a lot more relevant at producing what people are looking for in this niche than Google has. And you see, and these are all have mobile presences as well as PC presences. So you see this shift even on PCs, that people are moving away from Google sometimes to use these other types of platforms or channels to find the content they're looking for. So what that does is it causes Google to not be able to monetize as much as they used to be able to. And then we see weather, email, and maps are just 3 of handful of categories that ComScore studies show that these are mobile is taking the vast share of people are really going to mobile devices more than ever before to fulfill their needs to find weather, email, and maps. So we see this shift even more. And these now make up half of searches, all those things I just mentioned. And we see that 15 billion apps have been downloaded. And this last year in 2011 was the first time that app usage beat out mobile browser usage on mobile devices. So, and the trend is that the mobile browser is going to continue to decline and that app usage is going to continue to increase. So again, we're finding new ways of finding content. And so, like I said, there's this kind of Google versus Apple model that is quite different. The content commoditization, which is the open source movement, and then paid, copyright protected, professionally produced content that adds a lot more value than the free stuff, and then people can charge for it. And the challenge with Apple's model is that it is expensive to get into. You could spend $30,000, $40,000, $300,000 to produce an app, and so only certain people can produce that content and afford to basically get into that market. So you have marginally differentiated content. So Google provides content and no one cares where it comes from. They're just looking for the most relevant stuff and the source doesn't matter. And then we see Apple coming out with different things that offer different value, but it's only marginally different. And I think that that's been the struggle, the challenge over the last, sorry, I went back on my slides here. We've seen that the last 3 years really fill up with this commoditized versus marginally differentiated content battle. And I think the next several years we'll start to see kind of the app and marginally differentiated content versus highly differentiated content. And this is where HTML5 really comes in and makes it possible for big and small companies alike to produce app-like content on responsive design websites, and allows every pixel on the page to be interactive. And I think we're still a little ways away from seeing it, actually act like an app. But the point is that, for a fraction of the cost, me as a personal blogger for my video blog can buy a responsive design video-enabled website, HTML5 website that can work on any device, and I can purchase that for 30, 40, 50 bucks for the template, and allows a lot more people to get into producing potentially monetizable products through these new websites, new types of websites. And I think that this is where we're going to see a lot more differentiation and even smaller niches of content form. And again, that smaller niche and that more relevance produces more opportunity for charging for content. So all of that basically, that's where I think we're going to be seeing a big opportunity for brands, big brands as well as small brands, to be able to reduce their costs of producing monetizable content. And I think that we're going to see a big shift back to monetizable content. So the fourth trend is online video. Tomorrow will be as important as websites are today. So 43% of Americans, which is about 100 million, watch online, or they watched online video content on average more in 2011 than they did in 2010. This is a ComScore statistic. So we see this metric kind of break down in three ways, where we have average daily daily unique viewers has increased 43%. The number of videos viewed has increased by 44%, and then the videos per viewer has increased 37%, and that's in large part due to the development of tablets, which is they developed over the last 2 years. So we see a lot of growth in this area. And kind of building on those, quantifiable statistics, we beg the question: what will happen when our computers, tablets, smartphones are twice as fast and the average internet bandwidth is double what it is now? I think that video will become more prominent, not less, in that environment, and it won't take long for us to get here. And then when the prices for these things drop in half, they'll also flood into developing countries, bringing more eyeballs online. If you look at like Afghanistan and Cambodia, for example, they have a 25% literacy rate. And people there speak English a lot of times because they're glued to American multimedia. They grow up wanting to watch American TV and American movies and listen to American music, and so they all learn English because they want to be entertained in this way. And so they may not read their local language, but they listen and have learned English. And so this creates an opportunity that people producing online video can broadcast to these developing countries in ways that they will never have been before, and it's the only way to really reach some of these areas in developing countries. And we see this kind of evolution of camera equipment and editing software getting a lot cheaper, which will produce more professional videographers, which will in turn the video quality and the quantity of videos will increase dramatically with all these new video enabled people. And then the consumers will grow to expect to be communicated to through video because it'll become much more common. And then product companies, think like Sony or Apple, will build better consumption devices. I mean, we already have phenomenal ones today, but they'll probably get better, I'm guessing. And with all of these dropping barriers to entry, we'll see an increase in competition in the video world. And companies involved in that space will have to start to find new points of differentiation. You used to be able to produce a high quality video and really stand out from the crowd on YouTube. But there's going to be a lot more people being able to produce this high quality video a lot more easily and cheap in a cheaper way. And so you're going to have to find new ways to stand out and be different. And I think the way to do that is to find a niche and be extraordinary to that niche. So the future, and some just to touch on a couple of examples of what I think the future will look like. I think video editing will be simplified the way word processing was. You used to have to be almost a programmer to be able to type something out in a Word type document, and now it's become, not just the thing that we do, it's become just one of many things that we do, and everyone knows how to do it, and it's on every computer, and you don't need to have professional word processors anymore. You don't need a secretary anymore to type something out because everyone knows how to do this. I think this is what's going to happen to video editing as well. Animoto and iPhone, the iMovie iPhone app are early examples of this just really easy video editing that doesn't require any technical skills really. I think we'll see Instagram for video come out where you can just quickly add filters and kind of blurring and some transitions and things like that. Really easy to point, just very drag and drop, simple type user interface. I think that video editing will be transformed by templates the way website design was, where you used to have to go to a programmer and have them build a website from the ground up, start from scratch. And now you can buy a template for $35. I have a video blog and I have an HTML5 video blog for $35 off of themeforest.com, and it's really easy to use, really simple to install. And even our agency, when I was at an agency, we built websites. We would start with a template. We'd find a template that was as close to what we were looking for in the end as possible, and then customize it and tweak it as needed. But starting with a template saved us a ton of time, a ton of money. It helped us produce stuff a lot faster, and it was all around a good move. And I think this is what's going to happen to video. It'll become faster, easier, cheaper, quicker turnaround times, less technical skills needed, etc. I also expect that transcription technology will automatically index the video content. So right now I have I use SpeechPad as a transcriber to paste text below my videos. So Google knows what I'm talking about in my video, so it helps it get found in search results. I think that within a few months, definitely within the next year, we're going to see Google start really indexing videos based on the transcriptions that they have of them. So they'll basically be able to find out what I'm saying in my video without me having to just transcribe it. So this will improve relevancy, improve search traffic, and visibility for those who use video. And then basically there's going to be a whole generation of people that will be able to produce video that is good enough and engaging enough to spread ideas effectively. And again, that will, if you don't have a video presence, you won't have the share of voice that you currently have, and it'll be just like not having a website or a Facebook page today. Consumers expect that you have those things because of the way that trends have been going, and if you don't have video in the future, I think you're going to lose an opportunity, and you're going to lose even credibility. It's going to hurt you in the future. So trend 5, customer relationships first, social channel last. Here we see an evolution of the brand and consumer relationship. I kind of touched on this earlier. We see this old school TV model where you had a one-way channel that you advertise on, a TV, and then you have an advertisement commercial on it. Then we see people take the same mindset advertisers did, and they just put it on Facebook. So Facebook's is a two-way social channel, but they just thought about advertising the way they did on TV on it, and they just broadcasted one-way message, didn't listen to the consumers at all. And then they realized, as they matured, we need to actually listen and have an authentic dialogue with consumers, and this is where a lot of companies are at today. And this is considered to be like enlightened engagement, and this is good. But the next step we'll see is to have crowdsourcing and really be able to scale social efforts by allowing consumers to interact with each other. And I'll explain more what I mean by that in a minute. So to get into this, the biggest risk to your marketing campaign is that you don't own Facebook, and you have to play by their rules. And some of the rules, for example, are edge rank. So you can spend money and time and effort building a community on Facebook, and then when you put out a post, you may not be able to reach all of them because edge rank has determined that your posts aren't relevant enough to these consumers within your fan base. And so you have no control over that. You have to play by Facebook's rules. So these are things that that are challenges with using Facebook. But real relationships transcend the platform. So if you have a real relationship with your consumer, rather than just having a nameless followers that you don't know, the ROI is far better, from real relationships. People that you interact, you know what they like, you know how to produce something that is relevant and engaging to them, and that they'll respond to, something that they feel like you're talking right to them. This is where you'll see a bigger return. So this approach to actually building relationships will work on Facebook, and it'll work on any other platform, and this is something that's going to become even more important in the future in 2013. So starting with having real relationships will fan into enabling you to be able to get your customers to actually do some of your work for you. We see a great example with Starbucks being able to do this, where they actually have created their own custom social channel or social platform to be able to collect new ideas from their customers. Everything from what kind of cappuccinos they sell to what should the atmosphere look like, what should the ordering and payment and pickup process be, to their corporate social responsibility. And they could have done this on Facebook, but this allows them to really enhance engagement, improve the quality of their ideas, because consumers can see other ideas that are posted, and it's really catered to this niche community, to this niche need. And I think we're going to see a lot more custom platforms coming up, but I'll touch on that in a little bit. The crowdsourcing here is what's really interesting. And then you can empower your best customers to speak on your behalf. Everyone knows about this concept when it comes to evangelizing, but there's a huge opportunity when it comes to responding to crises as well, where if there's a problem or something, that oil spill example, or that's not the best example, but there's some sort of a challenge or a crisis that your brand encounters, you have your customers going to bat for you because you have a strong relationship with them, you've empowered them, you've enabled them to respond, and then they kind of protect you. They come back before you even get a chance to sometimes and respond to the other customers, and that's a lot more authentic and it's a lot more credible than you coming back because they're unbiased. They're not getting paid by your company, so their opinion, there's a lot more points for their opinion basically. And the other point of relationships is being able to not just build a relationship with your customers, but to allow them and facilitate them building a relationship with each other. That's going to be a huge growth opportunity in the future to again drive engagement. Consumers, there's a whole group of consumers that are looking for building relationships with other people. So that's a gamification concept I'll touch on in a minute, but that's a big opportunity. And this is also how you become efficient and you can scale. And I just took a class in Coursera, which is an online class, and it had about 90,000 students in it. You talk about a large class size. And imagine if 10% of them, say 9,000 of them, had one question that they emailed the professor. There'd be no way for the professor to respond to 9,000 emails. So they built a forum where students can ask questions and then other students can respond with answers or feedback or and be able to let the people help the people, so the professor doesn't have to tie up all of their time doing it. So this allows you to scale from 30 kids in a classroom to 90,000 kids in a classroom, or people in this case in the classroom. And this is how you scale social media. You can't have a one-to-one relationship with everyone that interacts with your brand and scale. You can't hire enough community managers to be able to do that. So this is how you can become not only efficient but also scale, become really big. So this is another visual depiction where you still interact with your new and your potential customers, but there's also an opportunity where just your customers handle some of that interaction, and you're able to monitor and kind of keep track and still be the authentic source, but there's an opportunity for your customers to be able to kind of do some of the work for you. So here's a traditional marketing funnel where you have a felt need, which leads to awareness, which leads to trial, evaluation, and purchase. And this is where a lot of people stop. And there's a huge missed opportunity to be able to follow up after they've made the purchase. This is where the huge opportunity for marketing is in 2013, is not before the purchase but after it. So do you support your products? Do you have a social relationship with them afterwards? Do you continue that relationship? Do you encourage and enable them to evangelize? Do you measure that sentiment? Do you get new ideas for products? And CRM is a way to do this using things like Salesforce, which is basically customer relationship management. And this ties back into the marketing funnel, because if someone sends out a negative tweet about your product, that's going to substantially hurt the inflow of new customers that start to come down that pipeline and that funnel back at the top again. So this is a marketing problem, not just a business problem. So trend 6, the rise of social gamification. So a lot of times people think of Halo, or in this case Modern Warfare, when they think of gamification or games, and this is not what we're talking about. Gamification, it's important for gamification to work like a game, not so much that it looks like a game. I'll explain more about that in a second. And the reason why gamification is important is because of engagement. You think about that, all those cluttered channels, and this is one of the ways to break through that clutter, and it's a really good way to do it. And it's like with branded entertainment. It's a way to kind of capture people's attention and keep them coming back for more. And so you look at like beyond food and drinks and basic shelter, what do customers really want? They want status, access, power, and stuff. Status basically is in their social hierarchy. How do they rank? Are they better or worse than their peers? Access. Do they get special stuff that other people don't get? And then power is, do they have influence over their community? And then free stuff is free stuff. And then you look at what drives consumers to act. And again, these are all things that game designers build into video games to make them engaging. So status, access, power, and stuff, they give these things to consumers to hook them into the game more and more. And this is what brands have an opportunity to do to get people to come back and hook into their brand more and more. And then this next section is what drives consumers to act. These are certain what they call player types, and this comes from like Richard Bartle's research on video games. And each consumer falls in one of these categories. And these are the types of people that come in contact with not only video games but with your company. And you want to build your campaigns to target specific types of people in one of these groups. So for example, an achiever wakes up every day and wants to win something. This person is really driven by like if you have a competition, like a Facebook competition or something like that, they want to win it. So they're going to really resonate with that competition. A killer is someone who is just like an achiever, but not only do they want to win, they want you to lose, and they want to do it. They want everyone to know that you lost, and so they love doing that in a public place. Social, if you think of like a Monopoly game or a card game or something with family members or something, where you keep score, you keep track of who's ahead and who's not, but that's not really the reason why you play. It would be for an achiever, but for a social person, they're motivated by having a social interaction with that game, and the game is they want a social interaction, and the game is the medium and the platform to be able to have that social interaction. So they're playing the game to hang out with people, basically. And then an explorer is someone who loves to tell a story about stuff. You think of someone who goes on a trip and buys this trinket and loves telling a story about how they got that trinket. So just to give you a practical example of gamification, how it could be implemented is, with social, say you are a store at the mall and you want to, people oftentimes go to the mall because they want to be able to hang out with people, and it's not just about buying stuff, it's about hanging out with people. And so the mall is the medium and the platform to be able to have that social encounter, and that's a game that is more fun when you have more people involved rather than playing by yourself and going by yourself. So if you're a store at the mall, if you incentivize people and you give a store or a sale to people who to have 3 or more friends come in, it incentivizes people in a way to do what they already want to do, to bring and hang out with people at the mall. And so this is a way you can really capitalize on engagement, or on gamification. And you really want to focus on giving incentives and rewards to get consumers to do what you want them to do. And like I said, the shopping at the mall can be more about socializing. And we see examples of this with Foursquare, where you have badges and you can get access to discounts and free stuff. You can have status symbols being the mayor somewhere. You have LinkedIn, where you have this progress bar with your profile that, oh, you're 90% complete, just upload your resume and you get your final completed profile. People want to finish stuff out and they want to be able to complete things, and so that's a big example, or a small example. The Office tried to drive engagement during their whole off season, so they had this many months of period where the consumers kind of fall off and they kind of lose their relationship with them for a long time. So they built this whole virtual space where they have like this virtual office where you can decorate your own cubicle, and it's got a lot of game components where you can get points for stuff, and that's one way they use it. Zynga is really interesting because they created this whole virtual currency where people take real money and buy virtual stuff, and they do it because they get status and they get access to stuff. You think of like Farmville, they can pay money to improve how well they do in the game. And so here again, you have people that take real money and buy fake stuff, and it's a huge market, and that is growing rapidly, and it's all because of gamification. And you have Mini Cooper that created this whole week-long scavenger hunt for a digital Mini Cooper that moved around Stockholm, where people could only find out where it was on their iPhone through this iPhone app that they had to download. And then as soon as they got within 50 meters of this digital car they could only see on their phone, then they were able to snag it. And if they had it at the end of the week, they won a free Mini Cooper. But the catch is that anyone else who caught up to you and got within 50 yards of you would be able to steal the car from you. And so it was this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for this week competition that people came out in huge volumes to be able to participate in. And it really spoke to a lot of the different player types. It spoke to the people that were social, that wanted to play with and against their friends, the achievers that wanted to win, the killers that wanted everyone else to know that they they won and you lost, because it was being publicized on all kinds of channels, and it spoke to the explorers who wanted a heck of a story to be able to tell all their friends, and so this was really played to all of them, and this can happen on a big and a small scale. So you think like a local gym. A local gym was able to, if you just think about, if they had up on the wall the people that came the most to the gym had their picture up on the wall, the top 10 people, or if you had a digital screen with all of the members of this local small gym up on the wall, and the people that haven't come in a long time move to the left, and the people that come more often move to the right, and everyone that walks in, all of your friends and people that you work out with know when you haven't been to the gym in a while, and this is a status thing, and so you start to come to the gym because of a felt need to get more status. So it's just a hypothetical example. So the last trend is probably the most controversial, and I get a lot of this stuff from a guy named Thomas Bechtel, and he kind of at least first inspired me to start thinking about this area, and it's social media after Facebook domination. And there's a few categories to touch on. First, I recognize that Facebook is king. All measurements seem to show that. Portals like Yahoo, MSN, AOL, things like that. People spend about 16.7% of all time on the internet on these channels. But that's trending downward as Facebook is growing, and it's now just about equal. As you can see in this chart, the top blue line is the portals declining, and Facebook is the lighter blue just below that. And that's catching up, and if the trend continues, Facebook is going to overtake the portals. Basically, this is just one of many statistics that show that Facebook is very dominant. Just their user base, their internet time, But all that being said, how can I make an argument for a post-dominated Facebook world? And this is more conceptual than even practical sometimes, but I think it's important to start thinking long-term ahead, to start preparing now for what that future might look like. So right now we're seeing custom niche social platforms, as I kind of mentioned earlier with Starbucks, emerge. We see other examples with Livestrong building Facebook functionality on their website. We see it like Lady Gaga really catering in their social network to kind of music, pop culture niche. There's an accounts receivable social network that I was just talking to someone the other day about. They built this whole social network just for accounts receivable people. And then there's this, one of these larger banks built a whole mortgage network that was anonymous, which is unusual for social networks, but they're trying to give support or allow consumers to help each other, in this tough foreclosure market where people have gotten kicked out of their homes and how to recover and help with that. And it's catered to that industry, and then Ning allows you to kind of build really social enabled websites, and it's kind of an early, less mature example of how to get into the space, but it allows more people to start building social enabled websites. So I see agencies like RGA, building these custom social platforms for these large brands, and I think that we will. The reason why they're able to exist is because they offer more functionality that is specifically catered towards the needs of that community. So like that Starbucks example I talked about earlier. Another reason why I think we'll start seeing more of this is for industries like medical, finance, Department of Defense that are highly regulated or restricted in ways that they need to have more safeguards put up. So like I had a client come to me and at our agency that needed to roll out a social media campaign, but they couldn't use Facebook, they couldn't use Twitter, LinkedIn, or YouTube. And so you think about how the heck are they going to be social, because that's people equivalent social with these platforms. But social is not tied, doesn't have to involve those platforms. And that's where I think that we see a growing trend that people are building their own stuff for specific reasons on their own platforms. And I also see a trend with an interest graph social platform, so it's kind of in the same vein. You see sites like Pinterest where people are connecting more on mutual hobbies like baking or traveling or something, rather than connecting with people that they know personally, people that I went to high school with, for example. I think we'll see a growing trend with that. Google Plus is trying to tap into that same kind of mentality where people are connecting based on stuff they like to do rather than just people that they knew in real life. And if you think about people trying to, right now, a lot of big brands that spend money on traditional advertising, like TV commercials, for example, are trying to swap their traditional spend with their digital spend. So if you think about, like, just to give a practical example, say you have 60% of your budget going towards traditional and 40% going towards digital, and say you want to swap those. It's a lot of risk to do that right away, because we've had 40 years to figure out TV advertising and to really refine and make that happen and make sure it gives the return that we expect for it to support our business. We've only had social for a short period of time, or digital for a short period of time. So it's risky to just swap it right away. But this is where they want to go as soon as it's a little bit more tried and true. And I think these custom social platforms is one place that this extra money will go. And then we see platforms versus content production. So you can either be the content producer and really kind of drive engagement and relationship with customers that way, or you can be the platform that the conversations happen on. And again, we see the examples of HTML5 and GoPro and becoming a platform that allows crowdsourcing earlier. And I think this kind of just will help fuel this kind of transition away from Facebook being the one dominant king. And we see a growing dissatisfaction and dissent from Facebook. So this is research from 4C, and we see that Facebook and Twitter are at the very bottom of the brands that they measured. Not only that they are at the bottom, they're the fastest declining brands that they measured. So people are not happy, and in large part it's due to privacy problems, imposed rules like EdgeRank and other things like that, and just kind of not really caring at all about some of their users. So people are going to start wanting to look for, people use Facebook because they have to, because everyone's on Facebook, but as soon as you start to transition or have alternatives, people are ready to start to switch to alternatives if they're presented. I think these custom platforms will help provide alternatives. And right now, social is defined by not by what we do, but by where we do it. We're in the era of platforms. I think that in the future we'll start to see social move away from being a platform where I go to Facebook to be social, and I'll start to be a feature everywhere. Just like gamification should be a feature everywhere, I think social will be as well. And we see this platform war where each of the social networks are trying to build this fence around their platform so that people don't leave, because they all have investors and they're all trying to make money and they're all trying to grow bigger and bigger. And we see this kind of walled approach between Twitter and LinkedIn, and how if you are on LinkedIn and you try to follow someone on Twitter, it doesn't link you over to Twitter. It just allows you to follow them within LinkedIn, and Twitter won't be shared through other platforms because they want you to come to Twitter and stay on Twitter. And Facebook's the same thing with with the stuff that they do. I mean, there's a whole host of these types of things that are all through these platform wars, and there's a whole long list of these things. And I think that we're going to start to see a switch. Basically, I would equivalent that to the original story of like email, for example, where in the old days with email, you could only email people within your network. So say like at your company, you can only email people within your company. And that has very limited uses. It creates walls around anyone who uses a different protocol. But it made it much more effective once that protocol was standardized. It basically allows technology A to talk to technology A, rather than having an A and a B. They all standardize so that everyone can communicate with everyone, and it created a better experience for everybody involved. So that'd be like today's social networks are a lot like the original email, and I think we'll start to see this move towards everything working together. And we see early examples of that with like instant messaging, for example, where you used to have to go to AOL, Instant Messenger, to be able to communicate with other AOL users, and you couldn't have it work with any other providers. But now we see a lot of new tools that will bring in, your instant messaging from Google and with Skype and with AOL or AIM or with other, and it'll all funnel into one thing. And we see the evolution of TV, where they used to have to produce different types of TV content for different types of TVs and broadcasters, and it's all been standardized. And we see the same thing. Imagine with blogs, if you had to sign up for a WordPress account just to be able to view the WordPress stuff, or a blogger one to just view blogger blogs, or a Tumblr blog to just view Tumblr blogs. It'd be like having to have you could only communicate in email with Gmail subscribers, and then Yahoo could only email with Yahoo users. It doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it started off, and that's the way a lot of these technologies start off. If you look at like cell phone chargers, they all used to be different because they were all proprietary phones that each company came up with their own solution, but eventually they standardized because it just makes sense to be able to work together. And so a practical example, we could see things like you can follow your Facebook friends from Google+, or when you reply to a Twitter direct message via Facebook. Or, and I think soon it'll be as easy to follow a brand's website as their Facebook page. And I'm not talking about cross-posting, I'm talking about where you can read the whole New York Times article on Google+. It's not just a link on Google+ that goes to their website. It allows you to be completely social and connect with the content you're looking for wherever you want to connect with it. And so another example of this could be like, you post a blog post on Blogger, and it will also post it on Google Plus automatically. And then if someone comments on Google Plus, it will also post it back on Blogger. And I think that all interactions, like comments and plus ones and likes and all that, will stay with the content, not with the platform. And we see, I guess I pointed out, like, USBs and whatnot all converged in this way, where they all became standardized so that you can have a USB port, plug work with all USB things on all computers and devices. And I think that's what social will become, because the user experience will be greatly enhanced, and everyone involved, even though Facebook and Google and Twitter are all enemies right now, I think that this will enhance the user experience and enhance the business eventually, for all of them involved. It'll take us a while to get there, and I think the early framework that we can maybe root for is with Google Plus and with Google's offerings. So, right now we see a protocol across Gmail, Google Plus, YouTube, and Blogger, for example. And I don't think it will be too much longer before, if you post a YouTube video on Google Plus, if someone comments on it, it will also cross-post over to YouTube or onto Blogger. And I think that since Google has so many services and so many offerings that are outside of just their strict social network, I think that we'll see this could be an early start to the framework to really start seeing this transformation. And unlike Facebook and Twitter, I think that Google has the ability to do this. And we already see YouTube being plastered across the entire web. If Google Plus is able to follow suit with that, I think we can start to see this trend. And again, this is still a destination, it's still a platform, but I think it'll start to lead us down the road to be able to get there. And so this combination of custom social platforms will create the need for Facebook and Google and Twitter to be able to connect with niche audiences that are on these other platforms, to start to make their offerings more of a protocol that works with these other platforms rather than proprietary, which is what they're currently doing. So that's a lot of, I hope, thought-provoking things. I want to kind of wrap up, given this has gone on for a long presentation. And I got a lot of inspiration and some ideas and some research from a lot of these people on here, and I want to make sure I give them credit for the stuff that they're doing. I recommend fully checking out these people, see what they're doing, and I would love to recommend them. And if you have any questions, please let me know on any of the social channels, or you can go ahead and give me a call or email me, if you would like as well. And my Twitter handle there is mrobertsonline. You can find my blog at allegoredesign.com or find me on LinkedIn. And all my other social channels you can find on my blog. So hope that was helpful. Again, my name is Mike Roberts. I would look forward to interacting with you and look forward to 2013. Let me know what you think about this.